Hey guys, Helen Hernandez Archer here with Compass Lux Living Properties here in Atlanta. And today we're going to be talking about the 3 things you need to know when selling and buying in 2022. And with us today, we have our closing attorney, Brian Douglas, he's a veteran in the business. He's been in the business for 18 years. So I am so excited to have him today talking about these 3 things you need to know in 2022. So Brian, tell us, what are those 3 things we need to be really in the lookout for selling and buying?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is capital gains, right? Everyone's seen this jump in real estate. So one of the reasons people are even thinking about buying and selling or upsizing maybe is because they figured out their neighbor sold their house. They're like, holy cow, if you sold your house for that, I got a new kitchen, I got a basement, you don't have all that. So people realize how much more their house is worth than when they paid for it. So that automatically triggers them to want to sell. Well, when you sell a capital asset, i.e. real estate, there's capital gains that you have to consider. Now, if it was your primary residence for 2 of the last 5 years, under the current tax code, it's exempt from capital gains, basically up to $500,000 if you're a married couple. And what that means, and I get this question a lot, it doesn't mean if you sell your house for $600,000, you only get $500,000. It's the gain that we're actually calculating. So if you bought the house for $300,000 and now you're selling it for $500,000, the gain in that example is $200,000. So as a married couple, like you and your husband could sell, in that example, you bought it for 3, you could sell it for $800,000, and that's the gain. It's not the total sale price.
Right.
It's when you do the calculation, you take the sale price today, essentially minus what's called the basis, which is the price you paid for it.
So you get taxed on that difference. Let's just take that example of $200,000. So, but it's only if you sell and not buy a primary property. So if you sell your primary property and you move into another primary property, would you be exempt from those capital gains?
No, you wouldn't. If it's your primary residence, you're exempt from the capital gains.
Okay.
But if, let's just say you lived there for a year, and we've seen this happen quite a bit, right? A year ago, someone bought it, they found a really good deal, and then they're selling it now because the market's gone up, right? It's jumped way up. So they realize they can capture this big gain and move to the next house, and they can upsize again, right? They can roll that into the next house. Well, because they've only owned that house for a year, even though they lived in it, it's not exempt from capital gains. So they have to pay capital gains on that sale. It doesn't matter that they're rolling it into a new property. You know, if it's an investment property, you can still do something called a 1031 exchange,
right? Which
is it's a like kind exchange. So if you owned an investment property, you could use the tax code to do a 1031 exchange, which basically you would roll the gain into the new property. It doesn't avoid the taxes, it just prolongs it, right? So instead of paying on this transaction because you're gonna go from one investment property to another, then you just add that into the next property.
So let's say I'm gonna put another scenario on capital gains. Let's just say I'm moving out of town. I'm a seller, I'm selling my primary property. I've been in the property for 5 years and I'm moving to California. So what happens then?
Well, if you've lived in that property for 5 years, you're in good shape, right? Because it's 2 of the last 5. It can be any 2 of the last 5. It doesn't have to be the first 2 or the last 2.
2 continuous years.
Well, 2 years and 5 years, right? So you could do 1 and 1. There's a lot of ways that you can slice up. It just has to be out of the last 5 years of ownership prior to selling. Did you occupy that property for 2 total years?
So it's not even consecutive years.
It's not even consecutive years,
right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, but if you do move, if you don't buy in California or you end up buying, you're exempt from that because it was your primary property.
Because it was your primary property. That's exactly right. Now, one thing that we are seeing, and this is a little bit more unique, is we've seen people that bought property a long time ago. They might have held on to it either because they thought they were going to come back to Georgia, or they might have said, well, I just like to keep it as a rental, and then they moved to California. Well, if you moved to California 5 years ago or 10 years ago, rented out your house here, and now you're realizing, because you're talking to your neighbor, your old neighbors, and they're like, hey, the market's gone crazy, the neighborhood's through the roof, and you say, hey, I want to sell right now. Well, guess what? Now you got a couple things to worry about, right? You have capital gains because it's not your primary residence anymore, you've been renting it. When you have rental property, there's, you've got to get with your CPA because you have to recapture the depreciation. You can depreciate assets like that off your taxes, which is great every year when you do it, but when you sell it, you have to recapture all that. And then number 3, in this example, you're not a resident of Georgia anymore. You're an out-of-state seller, right? So you move to California, you pay your your income taxes there. So Georgia requires the closing attorney withhold extra money from you to make sure that they get their paycheck at the end of the day.
And boy, do our clients do not like that. How much is the percentage of that withholding?
It's 3%.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it can be a big number, right? Depending on the math and what people do, but it's something that generally catches people off guard because it's not, as a seller, they're not actually calculating that in. They're doing their back of the napkin math, and I think, I'm going to sell this, and we're paying, if we're paying closing costs, whatever the terms are, they know high level, but then they get hit with that, and it catches them out of left field, and then, we get a lot of phone calls at that point in time to talk about that.
To recap on that seller that moved to California, that kept the home as a rental, could be potentially paying capital gains, an appreciation, recapture appreciation, and also a withholding of 3% Georgia tax.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so number 2 on the things that to be aware when selling in 2022, what other things are you expecting or you're cautioning your clients?
I think anyone that's involved in real estate right now, property taxes are higher than they have been in my entire career, right? I mean, they go up, they go down. I mean, they were fairly stable, but they've been going up and up and up. There's a couple reasons, in my opinion. Number one, governments need money, right? COVID shut down a lot of things. COVID took a lot of services offline.
And prices are going up.
Prices are going up. So you couple the fact that the counties and the cities need money, which is how the only way they get money is taxes, and you couple that with this hot real estate market that we've had for so long and that we have certainly here in the metro area, that the prices are through the roof. It's just natural that it's only going in one direction, and that's up, right?
And also the escrows. So there's a big surprise sometimes when we are at the closing table, that why is it that now I have to pay not only a huge tax bill, but also there's a bigger amount that is being held in escrow.
Right.
So that's something to consider.
Yeah, because when your lender does that, I mean, and people worry about fees and how much, what's the appraisal going to cost and how much is title insurance and things like that. But when you have a bigger transaction, when you go from one level to the next, when you upsize, everything costs more. All of the fees across the board are going to be, but the escrow, to set that up, is going to be that much higher. And I just had this situation happen where the people were upsizing and they went from, I think about 700 to 1.3 million.
Ouch.
And then they moved from Cobb County, where we're sitting right now, they moved into the city of Atlanta.
Aye.
And so they got city of Atlanta taxes, they've got Fulton County taxes.
Double whammy.
And then they've got sanitation.
Sorry, we love Fulton County and we love Atlanta, but it's the reality.
And it's nothing against any of it, but they have that, and then they have their homeowners insurance. And you factor all of those in, and then you factor in the higher prices because the price point is just different. Insurance costs more.
Oh, and also, we talked about this, Brian, is the moving from a conventional loan into a jumbo loan.
Yeah.
So that leads us onto our third thing to be aware when selling, which is unexpected fees, right?
Fees. Yeah. So, the transactional fees across the board, I don't think we're immune from inflation. Inflation's hit every aspect of our life, from gas pumps to how much we pay for milk, right? I mean, we're seeing it, and you're seeing it in loans too. You're seeing it in real estate. You're seeing it because the prices are going up. You're seeing it because things just cost more than they did before. Cost of appraisals have gone up, right? All these little things, and it's not any one thing. It's just all of the things in the totality. And again, especially if you're upsizing, you're going from a certain level to the next level up, there's going to be a big difference in some of these fees. Just the fees that the government charges, right? When we do a transaction, we have to pay what's called intangible tax based on the mortgage, right? So if your mortgage doubled in size, guess what? That amount of tax that I send to the county doubles in size. We have to pay a transfer tax based on what? The purchase price, right? So if your purchase price doubled in size, that doubles in size too. And it's all the way down, across the board through everything. And to your point, when you get into jumbo world, right? So if you really are going, you're going to that next level and you're going to borrow more than, what is it, 640,000?
640, 200.
640, 200 is what the conventional loan limit is. So that and below, you're still what's called conventional. Anything above that is jumbo. And jumbo has it's a different world, right? There's different pricing, there's different rules, there's different underwriting, and it's not as uniform. So you have a lot of variables that can change at any given time because of the nature of jumbo.
Right.
And And what I'm seeing in this example, the one I told you about, that house I just told you about, that it was a lot of last minute things that happened because, again, the nature of jumbo underwriting and jumbo lending versus conventional, they're very, very different. And so you had this couple that was buying and they were upsized and they were really excited about it, but then there was a lot of things that were happening that they had never experienced before because they were at a different level, and no one was talking to them about that. No one was walking them through this, at least not in the way that that they felt comfortable about. So they ended up calling me and had all sorts of questions, and they wanted to know everything. So we spent a lot of time going over it, which was great, and they were very thankful at the end of the day. But they called me with almost a bit of panic because they're about to buy this house that's they're supposed to be their dream house, right? And they're really moving up. They're excited about it. And they felt like they were in the dark, and they almost felt like they didn't have any say in anything that was going on, and they didn't even understand how it was happening.
So definitely these are very important things. So let's just recap for a minute here. So 3 things to be aware when selling in 2022: capital gains, taxes higher and escrows are higher, and also the cost of sale, unexpected fees. And there you have it. Thank you, Brian. If you like this video, please subscribe down here. Thank you. And again, I'm Helen Archer here with Lux Living Properties at Compass. Take action.